So thank you everybody for being so prompt, getting back into the room. So we're now going to move to our second panel session of the day, which is focusing on AI at work. And I'm very pleased to hand over to my brilliant colleague, Nimmi Patel, who's going to chair the discussion. So over to you, Nimmi. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining this session. I hope you're sufficiently caffeinated. And if you're avoiding caffeine, I think we had some really nice herbal teas there. So please help yourself during the break. In this session, which is kindly sponsored by HP, we're going to be exploring the impacts of AI at work. And in particular, looking at how we can leverage this technology to support people into higher paying and productive and more rewarding jobs. But that comes with issues, and I think we're going to discuss some of that today. Before we start, I'm going to ask the panel to introduce themselves and also talk a bit about what AI technology in the workplace excites them or scares them. And I'm going to give them the option to choose whichever excitement or scares.
Does it have to be a choice?
Doesn't have to be a choice.
Thank you very much, Nimmi, for having me. I'm Anna Thomas, founding director and co-director of the Institute for the Future of Work. We're an independent research and development organisation studying the impacts of technology on work and society. Your question, I think for me, it has to be Gen AI in both terms of excitement, but also in terms of being scared, or worried at least. Or triggering things that perhaps really should be done now, both in terms of policy or action. It's a huge opportunity to build on it and to use it and to deploy it, I think, in a way that augments the capabilities and the skills of employees and workers, and in particular to increase their discretion, to sort of broaden their horizons, to create new jobs and to improve potentially the quality of jobs if it's done for design, thinking of design of the jobs. Also perhaps to trigger thinking about what a sort of AI strategy or a people strategy might look like, or what the purpose of its application really is. However, it's not inevitable. And it's really easy to fall into the trap of thinking just that releasing it will be good, that sort of that co-pilot or whatever is the answer, is the inevitable answer, and that's just an example. And if we do that, we're more likely, I think, to substitute. Just simply think about narrow measures, narrow things, the substitution of tasks and the substitution of human capabilities, not about the exciting things, not about the potential, not about all the other things that it could do. And it also, if it's left, I think, alone, does have, we already know that, some sort of worrying secondary effects, both in terms of equality and in terms of engagement, in terms of fear and trust, and these things need to be recognised. So I suppose the innovation and governance goes together.
Thank you. Neil.
Yeah, hi. My name is Neil Sawyer. I run a part of HP's business, Northern Europe, and I've been focused on AI and of course the technology sector for a number of years, and of course we've been through waves of many changes in that time, notably of course with the introduction of the web in recent times, and the impact that has had on productivity and how we work and where we work. And when we look at AI and generative AI in particular, then understandably there's always concern with things that are new to us. You know, we're humans, we have a natural interest in ensuring that we defend and we protect ourselves, and AI is no more important than any other topic in that statement. But looking for the positive contributions that AI will have, I was very fortunate to go up to Heriot-Watt University a few weeks ago and look at the impact that generative AI will have on how vulnerable people, those with social care needs and those with complex health needs, oftentimes relating to age, and how AI will effectively deliver a much more inclusive way of caring and monitoring people, oftentimes who end up being alone. And I'm sure you've got relatives or friends or people within your social network who may have suffered from the impact of aging or ill health, and the benefit that AI will deliver around ensuring that we deliver as society a more inclusive way of looking after people and caring for people and monitoring people that need it, will be a real value for our society, and importantly for healthcare as well. It means that we can repurpose and reskill people to focus on other acute and critical healthcare needs. That really excites me because it touches my personal experiences in life, and I can see visibly the benefits that it will deliver society in general.
So we've got an excitement and a scared. We've got an excited. Kate.
Thanks, Nimmi. I'm Kate Bell. I'm the Assistant General Secretary of the techUK. That's the Trades Union Congress, and we bring together 48 trade unions representing everyone from actors to welders to train drivers to nurses, 5 million people across the economy. I think I'm probably going to echo what colleagues on the panel have said a little bit and just reflect on the fact that AI is a tool, of course. So I'm not that excited about the existence of a new tool, but I am really excited about the purposes that we might put that to. And I think when I feel excited about it is when you can hear that conversation moving forward. So people are talking about some of the big challenges we face in the economy, whether that's, realising the challenge of net zero, whether that's thinking about the challenges of an ageing population, whether that is addressing our decades-long productivity crisis, and people are talking about how AI could help us to solve those problems. I think that's really, really exciting, and that kind of purpose-driven innovation is something that's a really incredibly positive conversation. I think I get a bit scared when it's partly about, what it's doing to the stock market, basically, where the value from AI is coming in. And kind of the idea that we're just going to, we're going to insert AI into our existing economic model, which we can discuss around the world, but we know from the last 10 years of the UK has been delivering flatlining living standards, no productivity growth pretty much over the last decade, and an experience that isn't good for workers and is not enabling us to invest in those public services that you're talking about. So I think, like other colleagues on the panel are saying, it's the purposes we put that artificial intelligence to that, shape the nature of the conversation and shape whether it's an exciting and positive one that workers want to get involved in, or whether it really feels like just more of the same.
Absolutely. And Anna, you worked on a review focusing in on the impact of AI and automation on productivity and well-being. What were the findings from that review?
There were a lot of findings. It was a 3-year consortium with representatives from industry, trade unions. Kate was on the steering group, and multidisciplinary perspectives, looking at impact of AI and automation technologies at a systems, firm, and individual level. And that actually was one of the big findings, that we're sort of past the age of being able to sort of put our finger on a figure. It's not possible anymore from the perspective of one discipline or one way of looking at it. And you really do have to get a sort of systematic, longer-term view and consider changes and impacts at systems level, sort of macro, firm level and individual level. So that, I suppose, counts as a finding. In terms of the some more specific things that came out of it, we did find, even though some of the surveys, the qualitative stuff went right up to the last minute, but the survey, the firm level survey of 1,000 firms, including many SMEs in the UK, did suggest that only just under 80% were using automation technologies, including AI, for cognitive automation, and that SMEs were using that as much as larger companies. And that was even sort of on the cusp of Gen AI. And most workers were also reporting use and contact of Gen AI, even though we know as well from other bits of the qualitative material that it may not be identified. So in terms of kind of the extent of it, it was huge. The variation was huge. I think really big headlines there's the importance of focusing on sort of the human augmentation. So in a sense, it backed up our hypothesis that focusing really on augmentation and human capabilities over technological ones and thinking of them really together was really key in delivering better outcomes. From a firm level perspective, high involvement management practice was also really key in mediating better outcomes. So, as Kate has said, participation, both of individuals and of their representatives, really key in mediating better outcomes, really bottoming out exactly what the potential is, addressing and mitigating the risks, and ensuring that there's a good that the full range of options is anticipated as much as we can, and that there are systems set up for ongoing monitoring and response involving a high level of participation to cope with whatever may happen in the future. That's very much a whistle-stop tour, and I refer to the reports on the website.
Yes, please do find the report on the website. Neil, how has HP integrated AI in the workplace, and how has it mitigated the risks that Anna was speaking about?
Yeah, AI has been around for a long time. It's not some sort of thing that was born in 2024 and suddenly we're all rampantly chasing it in 2025. It's been around for a long time, and so, you know, for large organisations, whether it be governmental organisations or in the private sector like my business, then we've taken a lot of operational processes and ensured that we use the data and the analytics capabilities to process customer requests more readily, more speedily. We've been able to respond to important things for us, you know, framework tender responses, customer requests for information more readily and more in a more autonomous way. But most importantly, that allows us to repurpose the resource that we have, the human resource, to go and deliver value through relationship building, market expansion and development. And that's the key pivotal element to all of it, is that it isn't about replacing the human skill set. It's allowing the human skill set to develop and advance so that we, as a large organisation with 60,000 people, to reinvest those people and those skills into other valuable areas that really truly benefit from human engagement and the human element.
So in techUK's Making AI Work for the UK report, we highlight how good management practices are crucial to implementing AI technologies. Now, can good management practices be automated, and or can AI be used to deliver that? And what does that mean if
I think one of our key principles throughout the work we've done on artificial intelligence, and we published this kind of draft legislation looking at artificial intelligence in the workplace, is the right to a human review. So I think artificial intelligence can help you collect your data, it can help you interrogate your data, but it probably can't always tell you what that data means. And I think one of the key things we found from talking to workers is that, you know, the importance of human review is really, really critical. It sounds silly, but it is a real example we had was some tracking technology that had been put in the cabs of drivers in Royal Mail, and it kept reporting back they're stopping unnecessarily. Why are they stopping? So it turns out they're stopping for red lights, basically. And our artificial intelligence is going to get more intelligent, right? It definitely is going to get more intelligent, but there's always going to be a kind of something isn't quite right here. What are we doing about it? Just listening to you talk about, you know, what artificial intelligence is doing in your business, I thought it was really interesting. It sounds really positive, great that you're empowering people in the front line. It's really interesting that you're using it for kind of tender responses. Now, most tenders for most things are boring, complex documents with a lot of compliance. I think there's sometimes a worry that rather than think about why are we filling out this information, why are we, you know, what is this compliance process? We just say, oh, we'll automate it, so we don't have to rethink the process. And I think the key to getting it right is, what are the processes that work for the humans, and then how can AI help us deliver them, rather than take a set of broken processes and automate it so that it's quicker. And I think that's why you need the humans in control, you need the human review to keep having those conversations about, why does this process work, why are we doing this thing, how can we make it work better for us, rather than, well, we can definitely do it quicker if it's automated.
On the example, go ahead, Anna. On the example that Kate provided, you spoke about sort of excessive surveillance and workplace monitoring. How can we ensure that people retain autonomy and really have a sense of pride in their work if companies are implementing such technologies in that way?
just perhaps picking up on what Kate said and looping it to that. Our research does show as well that it is important to have confidence that there is redress and also human control. Linking it as well with what you said, Nimmi, about the former question, although we are also quite keen that people go upstream and downstream of that and really think about the entire system, both in the firm and the incentive structure that surrounds it, where government has a role to play, the sort of design, development and deployment of the technology, surveillance technologies in particular and high involvement practice as well. We're finding that across the board, sort of focusing on good work is a really good way of cutting through.
What's good work?
So good work. People have researched it for a very long time in terms of good quality. We're conceiving of good work as something that is a sort of almost like a heuristic, a way of getting people to focus on the most important things. From a workplace point of view, in addition to some excellent work that Kate and others, for example, Chris Warhurst has done on job quality, we can see good work as a way of translating AI principles into the workplace, sort of capturing different laws, both hard laws and soft laws, and delivering, therefore, the principles approach that the UK is leading on. That it mediates better outcomes, and that since this is a conversation about productivity, that also there's plenty of evidence, even before our review, but I hope our review has got close to nailing it, that dimensions of good work are absolutely associated with productivity in a way that's sort of bigger than sort of efficiency as it's defined at a moment in time by a particular company. So those sort of pay and benefits, sort of participation, terms and terms, voice, health and well-being, focusing on that, and learning and skills development. So those are kind of dimensions of good work, Nimmi, which I think probably are the most important aspects of good work in this conversation.
Definitely. And how can people work, and companies in particular, work with unions to make sure that this is implemented safely?
So in the legislation we drew up, we suggested that when an employer is thinking about introducing a new technology, they should undertake a workplace risk assessment in the same way that if you were introducing a new procedure, a new mechanistic procedure into your workplace, and you should consult the workers. We prefer you are consulting them through a union. We think that's the most effective, efficient way to get an independent collective voice. But we think that initial consultation is the absolutely kind of key mechanism for saying, not just do you feel safe with this technology in your workplace, but is it going to work? Is it going to solve the problems that you face on a day-to-day basis? Or are there issues around, like, it's going to be able to tell that this is a red light and I will be stopping my vehicle, that can actually inform how that is used? So that initial consultation when a technology is introduced, we think is critical. We then suggest that it's reviewed on an annual basis to say, well, how has it worked? What's going wrong? And that people are given an independent voice. I think people want to see new technology introduced into their workplace. You know, they are excited about the potential. They're excited about the potential to take away the more boring tasks. But at the moment, without being consulted, they are scared too. And when you survey people, they will regularly say they are anxious about the impacts of technology. But I think that principle of workplace consultation is one that, you know, has been shown to deliver higher productivity businesses right across the board, whether it's in the introduction of technology, AI, or other workplace practices. And it's just one that we need to get more familiar with. And this perhaps gives us an opportunity to do that.
On your point, Kate, so we'd like to do a survey of the audience. So hands up if you feel comfortable with AI implemented in your workplace. Hands up high. Wave them.
This is going to be the most tech-friendly audience that exists, right? We're literally at the techUK conference.
Hands up if you feel uncomfortable. Some descendants. And hands up if you feel somewhat uncomfortable, somewhat comfortable. Sorry, very binary results. Okay, that's really interesting. I mean, what do those results tell you from an audience that is educated in tech policy? Are companies doing something right in highlighting how they're leveraging technologies, and what can we do to support those who are not comfortable?
Well, as I said, I don't think this is perhaps the most neutral sample we're going to encounter. And when you look at the kind of survey evidence, the level of anxiety is quite a lot higher. But I suppose it shows you can do it right. But I think probably most people in this room are already in a professional job where they have a reasonable degree of control over their working life. You can tell me if that's the case or not, maybe not individually, but after this session. And I think introducing technology into a situation where people feel they have control over their working life, of course, can be a huge positive. It can be labour saving, it can be exciting, it can deliver productivity, it can enable you to exercise your creativity. But I think more people want to be in a situation where they feel they have control over their working life, and that technology is something that's done with them, not to them, and that's the key to getting it right.
That's exactly what she mentioned in our panel earlier around the future ambitions for AI. Importantly, government is looking at creating sort of a series of toolkits on implementing such technologies in the workplace and how to use them safely. We don't know what's going to come out of that, but do you think that's useful, especially for SMEs? Is a toolkit a good start?
I think it's an essential start. I feel that, just to address the point here, is that consulting with your workforce and engaging with your employees is a great step forward to introducing any technology, any new process. I mean, it's common sense, but what I do understand is that clearly, in certain industries where there's a lack of trust, perhaps, then ultimately you need to go further in terms of those consultative processes. In terms of guidance and information and training, then there are lots of new generative AI tools online, and you can just go on them, upload information, press enter, and off you go. Your newly created piece of artwork or your new song or your new document has been tremendously crafted by a machine. But I think what you need to do is ensure that you know where that data is going. It's going to a trusted source, both in terms of where that data ends up residing and who ultimately owns the intellectual property, the legislation behind all of this. And I think training a workforce around these principles and defining what is a trusted source and what you can and cannot use is really, really important. And I know, for example, our partners at HP, Microsoft, and HP, we work really hard to define those principles. And I think more as AI, generative AI, develops over time, then what is also interesting is the environmental impact of uploading data into huge data centers is something that will be queried. And I think when you design and define the technology where you can deliver all of that processing and capability on the device rather than uploading it into data centers, particularly through sites that you're not familiar with, then actually you deliver more trust through an environment where that generative AI is controlled by your business or you as an individual, so you can have that consultative process in a much more clear and precise way.
Tools are, I think, really important, and they can also be part of nudging, building on things that already exist. We've got, for example, a good work algorithmic impact assessment that in terms of nudging towards the right things and getting focus on the right things, for example, as we've said, good work or participation. But they definitely do have to be part of a package and systematic that's consistent and aligned. So it has to, at the same time, as Chi was saying earlier, to think about how procurement can help those things and reward those things that are good, or think about what certain types of incentives, how incentives for technology can be linked with incentives that encourage this kind of human capabilities thing, and different types of support for SMEs, infrastructure as well. Sort of the infrastructure, regional infrastructure in which this is all taking place, including research and development, but also connectivity, is also crucially important.
Fantastic. I think we have some time for questions. So once again, I'm going to ask you to pop your hand up and my colleague Archie will find you. Gentlemen.
Hi. Thank you very much. That was really interesting. I wondered, you mentioned, Anna, I think the systems level, And you talked mostly about the company level and the individual level. I wondered what, at the systems level, actually can we ensure how this technology boosts productivity and living standards? And I'm thinking of things like, in the previous panel, they mentioned what an agentic corporation might look like and why would it be located in the UK? And then I guess the question is, how might that be taxed? Where do the benefits from such an agentic organization flow to, right? It's not just about the workers and the companies, but at the systems level, what does it change?
Shall I start? It changes a lot at the system, at the systems level. So the changes will be seen right across the domains that you've referred to, as well as at a firm and individual level. One way of beginning to think about it is to think about, we've described it as disruption index. So the entire tech life cycle and job life cycle and how they intersect. And the process, all the factors and the functions, the structural factors and functions that are relevant to both the creating of the job and the designing, or more likely and increasingly, the development and the deployment of the technology. So that's one way. So keeping that in mind, keeping that going, embedding that into the apparatus to support SMEs and also policy making, I think will be really important. Using policy levers across the things, across the domains that you've mentioned and otherwise, from procurement and competition to employment rights, and making sure they are all moving in the same direction and they work together will be very important. As I've said, we believe that something like good work is a good sort of cross-cutting way to help advance mission-driven government in these areas. And I'm not sure if you've got anything, if you want me to answer anything that's more specific to that. But I think it's embedding these considerations basically at the earliest possible point with regard to what your role is in this, in the system.
Yeah, I think this kind of relates to the previous point as well, but I think the regulatory system into which technology is introduced is obviously going to really matter. That's a system that makes a difference. And I think there is potentially a dilemma for government in that if we want to encourage small business uptake of AI for productivity reasons, I think the quickest way to do that is going to be standardization. Basically, it's going to be, here are 5 off-the-shelf products which you can use, and you trust. Now, if you think that is also the most kind of competitive environment, I don't know, but I think there is kind of a dilemma for government that if we want widespread uptake of these products, we are going to need some standardization in order to enable people to take them up, to feel confident doing so, to make sure that, they are not embedding discriminatory algorithms, that, as you said, the data which they are using is safe. And I think that's, that is a systems question about how government wants to regulate in this area. I guess the other key question is going to be about value. There's obviously a big debate going on about AI in the creative industries. We are pretty concerned around the government's current copyright proposals that AI could be value destroying rather than value creating in this situation. But I also think sometimes we're in a bit of danger of kind of overcomplicating. So when you say, where is this value going to end up and where is it taxed? Well, if it's ending up as profit, which it probably is, we have an established taxation regime for doing that. We have international tax treaties and we have a regulatory system. Every so often, someone in the trade union movement will say, well, should we have a kind of technology dividend for our data is being used to train the technology system? And I think my view is normally, no, we should just bargain for higher wages. This is going to end up as wages, and actually, we have well-established systems for working out how much value that a company creates goes into the hands of workers. Those systems are pretty tried and tested. They've been through several technological revolutions so far, and I think we do have to not assume that everything about this moment is new, basically, but think about the existing systems it's operating in and how we can use them.
Thank you. Does anybody else have a question?
More data one. The first one is, you mentioned, Neil, earlier about people using generative AI to produce tenders and proposals. It's also interesting to see that many public sector organisations are using the same technology to mark those proposals. I'd be interested to hear your views on that one. I'm seeing in the marketplace a lot of emphasis around the area of systems design or process design and how AI can be applied to improve processes and systems. What I'm not seeing is a great deal of effort going into human-centered design, i.e. looking at the problems faced by human beings from a human perspective and their experience. And I've noticed that in those projects where we've had great success in implementing AI-based solutions, where we started with talking to human beings, not about the process or the system, the outcome was much, much better. And people buy into it. What do you think about those ideas?
Neil, do you want to?
Yeah, on the sort of machine-to-machine submission versus marking versus outcome piece, it's a good point. But in terms of tender submissions, then understandably they're always checked. But I think my point is around things like benchmarking and testing and analysis of the right technology that fits a prerequisite of specifications. Oftentimes that can take a lot of time of human intervention, and actually by introducing the analytical processes that defines the outcomes, then actually that enables you to deliver a better tender input rather than something writing the verbiage and the response and something else marking it. I mean, that would be slightly bizarre to be in that world, but that's certainly not where we are. I wanted to just touch on the point around systems, and what's quite interesting is that a lot of generative AI and the conversation that we have in the press, the media, and the industry is about large language modeling and the standardizing of what's known as LLMs. And I think that what we've seen in recent times with the introduction of DeepSeek and other models is small language modeling as well, which actually can deliver on-device queries and production of information. So you avoid the risk of uploading that information into large environments and expecting some information to come back. So you can protect it within your own assets or your network or within the parameters of your business. And I think very, very importantly as well, and I touched on this point earlier, is you couldn't build enough data centers to generate the amount of data that will come out of generative AI. And it also comes down to power consumption as well. The UK doesn't have this problem today, but there are many countries around Europe who have an overburden of electricity on data centers. And that will cause a significant impact to the economy, how you generate electricity in the future. So the more you can utilize efficient small language models, the better the impact on the environment globally and nationally. And importantly as well, is the more cost-effective the introduction of generative AI will become, and the more secure it will be as well, because it's within your gift of control when you manage it within your environment. And those are very important parts that I think are not often considered as part of the system introduction that will be utilised.
One final question before we have to close up this panel, unfortunately. How do we support companies to upskill their staff to leverage these new technologies? I don't know about you guys, but sometimes I get scared of my CRM. So how are we supposed to use these new technologies in the workplace and to support people?
Focusing, I think, on what, in a way, what we've already articulated in this context is really important. So the participation element of it. So reciprocity and sharing information and consulting about what's happening and what could happen in the future is actually really super important to skills development, understanding those and developing them as well. And if we think of skills as not just skills as they're identified as a snapshot, but skills and capabilities, everyone's potential, their future skills and the application of those skills, that will help too. So I think that in terms of the scale, it has to really transform. I mean, there are new bodies at the moment that are being set up that can really help, I think, with that journey. Thinking also about skills as a window on thinking about job change. And which skills are those that are suitable for transitions, and the centrality and relationship of those skills is going to a more sophisticated way to skills mapping and potential, I think, is going to be necessary. and also thinking about the new AI skills which extend to information, understanding and governance, as well as tech skills and socio-tech skills, because we've also found that even sort of high, all sorts of tech jobs are also going to need the socio element just as much and more than the tech element.
I'll just give a quick plug to techUK, given it's a techUK event. Great skills platform to learn and educate around new skills development, embracing and understanding the skills required for the workplace today and in the future. So have a look at the techUK skills platform. HP invest in a global skills program called HP Life. It is a philanthropic project, so it's there to invest in the education practices and the work practices for countries, including the UK and other countries around the world. And we also have a program called Brighter Futures, which is an education program that's specifically targeting British schools and ensuring that students, young adults have the information, the access and the ability to learn these skills ready for the workplace. So we're doing a lot as an industry.
I think basically companies have to train their own staff. So we know that 80% of the 2030 workforce are all people who are already in work. We also know that in the UK, employers invest half the European average in skills. So I think there's a pretty clear direction of travel here. We need employers to step up and invest in their workforce. We hear a lot about skills shortages in the UK, but we hear that complaint. We don't see very much action. And I think what we have to do is make sure that companies have got places to send people on that training. Again, I think the standardization point is important to say, here is a set of technologies that everybody can use and a set of basic skills. But basically, I think we are going to need employers to step up.
I think employers are doing a lot, as evidenced by HP, but it's so costly. And I think that's why the AI Opportunities Action Plan has 9 recommendations on skills development in order to make sure that people can actually leverage these technologies. Please join me in thanking this fantastic panel.